Welcome to Newsbeacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The Supreme Court has reignited the national debate over the Second Amendment with a pivotal emergency decision. This decision has brought to the forefront a complex and contentious issue that has long been simmering under the surface of American politics. The question at hand is not just a legal puzzle but a societal one, touching on the very fabric of American identity and values. Should a firearm permit valid in one state be recognized in another? This seemingly simple question has profound implications for the balance of power between state and federal governments. It challenges the notion of states' rights and raises questions about the uniformity of laws across the nation. This question exposes the chaos of America's gun laws, where crossing a state line can turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. Imagine a person legally carrying a firearm in their home state, only to become a felon by simply driving into a neighboring state with different laws. This legal patchwork creates confusion and fear among gun owners who travel. Millions with concealed carry permits face real consequences due to the lack of reciprocity between states. These individuals who have undergone background checks and training find themselves in a precarious position. They must constantly navigate a maze of regulations, often at the risk of severe legal penalties. Some states honor each other's permits, but others, like Massachusetts, refuse, creating a legal minefield for travelers. This inconsistency not only affects individual gun owners, but also has broader implications for interstate commerce and travel. The lack of a standardized system complicates the lives of those who rely on their right to carry for personal protection. The Supreme Court's intervention signals a willingness to clarify the Second Amendment's reach after its landmark Bruin decision, which set a new standard for evaluating gun laws. This move by the court could potentially harmonize the disparate laws across states, providing a clearer framework for both gun owners and law enforcement. The case forces a reckoning. Where does state power end and constitutional rights begin? This is not just a legal debate but a philosophical one, questioning the very nature of federalism and individual rights in America. The outcome could redefine the relationship between state sovereignty and the constitutional guarantees provided to all citizens. As the nation watches, the Supreme Court's move could reshape the landscape of gun rights in America. The decision will likely have far-reaching consequences, influencing not only future legislation but also the daily lives of millions of Americans. The eyes of the nation are on the court, waiting to see how this pivotal issue will be resolved. Traveling with a firearm in the U.S. is a legal maze, one that can quickly become overwhelming, even for the most careful and law-abiding citizens. The United States is a patchwork of different laws, rules, and regulations, and nowhere is this more apparent than when it comes to guns. Each state has its own approach, and the differences can be dramatic. For example, what's perfectly legal in Utah, like carrying a concealed handgun with a permit, can instantly become a serious felony just by crossing into California, where the same permit might not be recognized at all. Permit reciprocity is at the heart of the issue. Some states have agreements to honor each other's permits, making travel relatively straightforward for gun owners. But in many cases these agreements are limited or non-existent. Other states refuse to recognize out-of-state permits, often citing public safety concerns or differences in training requirements. This means that a gun owner who is fully compliant at home can become a criminal simply by crossing a border. This patchwork of laws forces travelers to make difficult choices, either disarm and leave their firearm behind, or risk arrest and prosecution for violating unfamiliar laws. The burden falls heavily on those who rely on their right to travel freely and their right to self-defense. Planning a simple road trip can mean hours of research, checking every state's laws, and worrying about making a mistake. Imagine a truck driver with a Texas permit, legal in Arkansas, but suddenly illegal in Illinois. For people whose jobs require them to cross state lines every day, the risk of accidentally breaking the law is ever present. These drivers often find themselves constantly unloading and reloading their firearms, trying to stay compliant with each new state's rules. It's a stressful and confusing process that can lead to mistakes. Even well-meaning gun owners who go out of their way to follow the law can easily break it without realizing. The complexity of the system means that a simple oversight can have life-changing consequences. In 2022, the Supreme Court's Bruin decision was supposed to clarify the rules, and provide a more consistent standard for the right to carry firearms for self-defense. The decision affirmed that the right to carry a firearm for self-defense is protected by the Constitution, and that states cannot impose unreasonable barriers. But in practice, lower courts have struggled to apply the Supreme Court's guidance. The result has been a wave of new lawsuits, conflicting rulings, and ongoing uncertainty. Conflicting court decisions and persistent legal ambiguity have left gun owners, law enforcement, and lawmakers alike searching for answers. The legal landscape remains as complicated as ever. The patchwork endures, leaving gun owners in limbo, unsure of their rights and responsibilities as they travel from state to state. This ongoing confusion and legal uncertainty set the stage for the Supreme Court's latest intervention, as Americans continue to seek clarity and consistency in the nation's gun laws. For Philip Markey of New Hampshire, the debate over gun laws and state borders became deeply personal, transforming from an abstract policy issue into a life-altering reality. Markey, a lifelong resident of New Hampshire, had always believed he was following the law. He was a responsible gun owner, carrying his firearm legally with a permit issued by his home state. Like many in his community, he never imagined that a simple drive across the state line could have such profound consequences. In 2022, Markey found himself in an unexpected situation. While running errands near the Pheasant Lane Mall, which sits right on the border, he was involved in a minor car accident just a few hundred feet inside Massachusetts. He had no intention of breaking the law. He simply crossed an invisible line that separates two states with very different rules. When police arrived at the scene, Markey did what he thought was right. He informed the officers that he was carrying a firearm and showed them his New Hampshire permit. He expected a routine check, perhaps some paperwork, and to be on his way. Instead, the situation escalated rapidly. Markey was arrested on the spot, charged with a felony for illegal possession of a firearm in Massachusetts, and soon found himself facing the full weight of the criminal justice system. The reason was simple, but shocking. Massachusetts does not recognize New Hampshire's concealed carry permits. By crossing the border, even unintentionally, Marquis had unknowingly become a criminal in the eyes of Massachusetts law. The difference of just a few feet had turned a law-abiding citizen into a felon. Marquis's ordeal exposed the confusing and often arbitrary nature of America's patchwork gun laws. The fact that legality can change so dramatically with a simple change in geography struck many as absurd and unfair. His case became a powerful example of how state lines can create legal minefields for ordinary people. Marquis's legal team fought hard, arguing that the law violated his rights under the 2nd and 14th Amendments. They contended that citizens should not be subject to criminal prosecution simply for exercising a constitutional right recognized in their home state. Despite these arguments, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ultimately upheld his conviction, reinforcing the state's strict stance on gun permits. The case quickly gained national attention, sparking protests and heated debates about the need for clearer, more consistent gun laws across state lines. Marquis's ordeal became a rallying point for advocates seeking Supreme Court intervention, and his story was covered by major news outlets across the country. Through it all, Marquis's experience put a human face on the urgent need for clarity and fairness in America's gun laws. His story continues to resonate, reminding us that behind every legal battle are real people whose lives are forever changed by the outcome. 25 states, led by New Hampshire, rallied behind Markey, filing an amicus brief urging the Supreme Court to take his case. They argued that Massachusetts's law criminalizes their vetted, licensed citizens for exercising their rights while traveling. The coalition seeks a nationwide standard, permits recognized like driver's licenses. They cite the Bruin precedent. If the right to carry is fundamental, it shouldn't disappear at state lines. Their goal: end the patchwork, protect citizens, and enhance public safety. The coalition's involvement turned Marquis's case into a national referendum on gun rights. Their challenge asks the court to finally resolve the issue of interstate firearm transport. Massachusetts mounted a strong defense, citing federalism and public safety. The state insists its strict permitting process protects residents and that its standards are higher than many others. Critics argue the process is too burdensome for non-residents, but Massachusetts says rigorous vetting is essential. The state claims its law aligns with historical tradition, regulating, not prohibiting, gun carrying. Allies warned that forced reciprocity would erode local control and public safety, leading to a race to the bottom. Their stance, the right to bear arms, isn't absolute, and states must retain authority to protect their citizens. The Marquis case is complicated by shifting alliances. 25 states challenge Massachusetts, while the DOJ and other states back strict gun laws elsewhere. The DOJ supported New York's restrictive law, signaling support for state authority over gun control. This contrasts with the coalition's argument that constitutional rights should override state restrictions. The legal landscape is fractured, with states and the federal government taking different sides depending on the case. Libertarian groups like the Cato Institute argue the 14th Amendment protects the right to travel armed. The Supreme Court now faces a spectrum of arguments about history, safety, and freedom. The outcome could redefine the balance between state power and individual rights. The Supreme Court's emergency ruling in the Marquis case sent shockwaves nationwide. The court issued an injunction blocking Massachusetts from enforcing its law against out-of-state permit holders traveling through the state. This rare move signals skepticism toward state laws that block Second Amendment rights at state lines. For now, travelers like Marquis can cross Massachusetts without fear of arrest, pending a final decision. The injunction suggests the justices see the law as constitutionally suspect under Bruin. The pressure is now on states with similar laws, as the court hints at a future with more uniform gun rights. The Supreme Court's injunction could spark a national standard for gun permits. If a full ruling follows, every state might have to recognize all other states' concealed carry permits. Gun owners would celebrate a uniform right to self-defense, no longer limited by geography. Critics warn this would force strict states to accept lower standards, threatening public safety and state sovereignty. A national standard could also challenge other state-level gun regulations, accelerating legal battles. The debate: should the Second Amendment be a truly national right, or should states set their own rules? The Marquis case may be the first step toward a single judiciary-defined standard. The implications for American gun laws are enormous. The Supreme Court's intervention marks a turning point in the Second Amendment debate. The question now, is the right to carry a gun portable across state lines? Massachusetts defends local control. Marquis and his supporters demand national uniformity. The court's emergency action suggests impatience with a system that criminalizes citizens over invisible borders. A decisive ruling could overhaul American gun laws, ending the patchwork and sparking new legal challenges. The outcome will shape firearm ownership for generations, determining if the U.S. moves toward a unified standard. All eyes are on the justices, whose decision will redefine what it means to bear arms in America. The debate's direction has changed, and the stakes have never been higher.